Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. My name is Michael Barth. This is Owner Stories Day today. It's Tuesday. Today is the day where I speak to a owner from around the world, a Porsche owner, not necessarily a 911 owner, a Porsche owner from around the world. And the whole, I don't really say this anymore. I used to say it in the earlier episodes, but it's like this whole series, this PorscheCooled Owner Stories series was about, in my mind, it was like, each Porsche, and I used to say this in the beginning, and I haven't been saying it, like I said, each Porsche tells a different story, and each owner has a story to tell. And that's what Owner Stories of the PorscheCooled Podcast is all about. Every story is important. Every story has a little twist. Every story has a common thread that we can all relate to. And I think that's why you guys really enjoy hearing other people's stories and listening to their Porsche journey. Anyway, so I'm about to be joined. I just see, I think it's Alan, and I'm going to check with him. I'm not sure if it's Alan or Alan. It's probably Alan. I'm just going to connect up with Alan shortly. He's joining me from Antwerp, I think it is. He's in Antwerp in Belgium. Alan is an automotive photographer. He's fully immersed in car passion. He's a Porsche guy. He's also got another car, which we're going to talk about. I think it's going to be a good one. I've been wanting to get Alan on for some time. We managed to sort out a time, so let me get him on the line now. Let me join to Zoom. Let me just hook up to Zoom and get Alan on and start talking about his PorscheCooled owner story. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. Like I said, we're on Owner Stories. And we're actually on Owner Stories number 45. So it looks like we are going to get to 50. I never thought I'd actually get to 50 owner stories, but I think we may actually get there because I've got a few more people lined up in the next coming weeks. So like I said, today I'm joined by Alan, and Alan's coming in from Antwerp in Belgium. And as I said in the little intro, Alan has got an interesting story. He's got his first Porsche. He's got another really interesting car, and he's also an automotive photographer. Good morning, Alan. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for. I'm glad we managed to get the time organized. We've been talking for a while to get you on the owner stories.
It's been a long journey, but I can imagine you get a lot more to do than just doing these podcasts. So.
Yeah, this is I always find that the podcast, even though I always complain about being busy all the time on the episode with Steve or on Owner Stories, I find these really relaxing. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, it's like my fun time. It's like washing a car or looking at your Porsche in the garage. I find it like it's a time where you just, I can clear my head. So that side of it, I really enjoy. Let's get straight into your story, because I think we have quite a few things to chat about today, especially on the photography side and your car side. So I always like to start with the same story, Alan, is like where it all began for you with Porsche. For me, it started much later in life. I have only had my first Porsche for the last, almost 5 years. I always wanted one. It was all about, bad timing and not enough money. How did it all start with you? When did you start first noticing Porsche? Was it when you were young, living in Antwerp, living in Belgium, or was it a little bit later in life you started to look at Porsches and think, hey, I might want one of those?
Well, it actually started later in life. I have mine now for a couple of years, but previously it was all other cars. I never had a specific eye for a Porsche. I don't have a story like when I was a child, I got to drive one, or I don't have it. Fondest memory I have of Porsches and the model I most like is a 964. When I was younger, just getting my license, I was 18, something like that. I saw one at a car meeting with tuned cars. It was a lowered 964. It was a relatively newer car back then. And that's something that's always stuck with me. It's the model that I like, and there was a model that was around when I was growing up. So, but it's nothing specific. It all came later in life when I met some people and started photography. That's when Porsche came really into my life.
So when you were growing up, did you have cars in the family that were like something that you were interested in? Were there many cars in your family, or was it not really part of your life even in that side of it, like not necessarily Porsche but other cars?
Yeah, there was a lot of cars. My father was after hours mechanic, and he drove a lot of Vauxhall in English. It's called here. It's Opel.
Yes.
And I used to have some of them at the same time. When I was growing up, it was VW, Volkswagen, and Opel, but especially Volkswagen. I used to go to school, and when you get sick of school here in Belgium, you can go to it's called. In English, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's 4 days in the week you work and 1 day you go to school. And I used to do that as a car mechanic.
Okay, like I think in Australia they call it apprenticeship. It's called an apprenticeship. So you actually train and work at the same time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's more work and less school. So it's good for the people who are sick of school, don't want to go to school all the time. Like me, I wasn't motivated to stay in school, and the mechanic parts, it really drew me in, and it was successful. So I earned my degree there, and always been into cars, but not especially Porsche or anything, just cars.
Okay. So when you started working, after you did your training, so you were working as a mechanic?
Yeah. The apprenticeship, like you call it, it's 3 years, and then you get a sort of a degree in mechanic. And then I went on. I always wanted to do bodywork in a shop, but this was more mechanical. And then after the mechanical part, I went and worked for a body shop.
Okay. Wow. So you really have. So you've been in the whole car scene for a long, starting, from where you are now, from where it started in the beginning. So what sort of cars were you working on in when you were a mechanic? Just local European cars?
It was a crazy shop. It was specialized, and it only did VW Golfs.
Oh, right.
So it didn't do anything else. So it was the Golf 1, the Golf 2, and the Golf 3.
All right.
The 4 was the end of where I said that business model doesn't have a chance to survive. And starting at Golf 4, I left and went for a body shop, to work for a body shop.
So you're quite a specialist on the early Golfs then. Have you ever owned a Golf, Alan?
Oh yeah. I got a couple.
You had a couple.
I got a couple. I think 4 or 5 different models. Some I drove, I registered it, and some of them didn't. I just owned them and put them in a garage and said there will be some car for later, but never got around to it.
So was the Golf the first sort of memorable car that you owned? Was that the first car, out of studying, you bought a Golf? What mark Golf did you buy? What was the first one?
Well, the first one I got was Golf 2, second model, a 1.3, but nothing special. But in the time, I was working, and as apprenticeship, you get a little bit of money, not much. It was barely something, but all my friends they went to school and didn't get any money. So I was getting a little bit of money, and I put it right into the car. So another seats, lowering it, getting rims, and I had a car. All of my friends in the neighborhood didn't have cars, and I had a car. So.
And you were doing all the work, and you're doing all the work on it yourself as well, right? Because you've trained on it. You're starting, so you can do a lot more than other people could do because you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So what happened?
That was something special.
Yeah. So what happened? What's the notable cars after that, Alan? So you've had your Golf Mark II. That was one of the first notable ones. You're working on Golfs. You're a specialist in golf and mechanics of golf. What was the next memorable car you had along the way?
Well, at the time after the Mark II Golf 1.3, I went looking for a GTI. And I had the mechanic there, the head mechanic who was there a long time. We were both looking and going to view for some models. But we didn't find anything. All the cars in my price range wasn't high at the time. They were all accidents or rust buckets or something. They were so. I eventually bought a 1.8. Had around 90 horsepower, and that was very fast for that time for me. Yeah, coming from a 1.3 to 1.8, and after that I sold it, and we went on to another Golf, Cabriolet, Golf 1 Cabriolet. But I never drove that car. And then I had a Golf Mark II. I was again looking for a GTI. Yeah.
So why did you? Sorry, Alan. Why did you not drive the Cabriolet? No. Why did you not drive the Cabriolet? That was like an investment car that you were just going to put aside and watch the values, or what was the reason?
No, I wanted to drive it. But it never came to. I had it for 6 months in the garage and I worked on it. A friend of mine was selling it. It was nothing special, but it had a special alarm where you can, with a Clifford alarm, you can, with the remote control, you can start it.
Oh, okay.
So that was something special. It was a fun car. Just drove it. I drove it around the block with not registered license and everything. But then I sold it and went on to the most special Golf I ever bought. Okay. I was looking for a car, and it was the owner of the president of the golf club in Belgium. VW Golf Club in Belgium. It was a very special car. It was a little bit out of my price range, but the person who was selling it saw that I had interest in it, and he lowered the price, and he said there was somebody coming to view the car who offered more money than I did, but he thought I would take better care of it, and he sold it to me. And it was a very special Golf. It was an all chrome engine. It has an Lancia interior in it. It was a special color. It was a very beautiful car. So that was a very special car for me. At the time, we went on car meetings and the tuning scene. And that was something special. Here in Belgium, you don't see a lot of engine modification at that time. And this was very special. It was all cleaned. It was chrome. It was special.
Yeah. Sounds fantastic. How did you own that car for some time, Alain?
Yeah, I think I had it for around 5 years, and then I sold it on again, because here in Belgium they are very difficult at inspection of cars. You have to go every year. And I had 2 days to rebuild the car every year to go to the inspection. It was too much. And every time they found something new that was on the car for ages, and they will fail me, and I had to I change everything.
So they fail you on
the... It was not fun.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. So they fail you on the modifications. Is that what it is? So any modification from the factory, you have to... So what do you do when you take it to inspection? You have to remove the modifications? You have to hide the modifications?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. At the time when I bought it, it was on coilover suspension.
Yes.
But then we moved, and we had a parking in an underground structure. And the car wouldn't go down. It would scrape the bumper and everything. So So it wasn't good. So
Right.
I installed an air ride system on the car. So, but that's not it's not legal. So every time I have to go to the inspection, I have to take that out. It was on Weber carburetors.
Right.
That's not allowed here, so I had to take that one out. And
why do they make air suspension not legal though? You would think that if that's like an air ride, air suspension type system, surely a lot of new cars have air suspension. It's strange that would be something they wouldn't pass, isn't it?
Yeah, this was in the beginning of the air ride systems, and here in Belgium, if the car it's not original, it's not okay.
Oh, okay.
Everything you change on the car, it's not okay. It's not like in Holland or in Germany, you can get it certified with that specification, but here you just can't. It's a disaster.
Okay. All right. So you've got the VW bug, you've got the Golf bug. You're buying lots of Golfs. You're buying very special ones, like you said, from the president of the VW club. What follows that? What follows the special car with the chrome engine? What follows that special Golf? How do you get a car that's going to make you as happy as that one? What's the next one that comes out?
For me, it had to be easy to go to the inspection. I was sick and tired of every year taking 2 days off, building the car for inspection. So I went and looked for an Audi A4, the first model, the B5, with a 1.8 turbo engine.
Yes. So that's what followed.
That's what's followed. And the plan there was just simple modifications, because I never had an all original car. I think it's always changed a little bit, lowered a little bit, or aluminium wheels on it. So it's always been something special. And I had a very good mate of mine who still worked at the body shop where we both worked. I went on into sales, and he still worked there. So we got to look for a simple car, original, with a nice leather Recaro interior.
Yes.
And I bought it, and we both did all the body, renewed the paint on the outside. Every scratch, every little dent that was in there, it was taken out. And made some surfaces very smooth, like the bumpers and everything. So that was a special car. It was just lowered and had nice wheels on it. So I only had to. It was also a coilover suspension.
Okay.
So if I went to the inspection, I just had to take the wheels off, raise the height of the car, and put the original wheels on it, and that was done. It was a couple of hours for the inspection, and that was okay.
Okay, so you basically, I mean, it's easy for you because you can do the work yourself. You know what I mean? Like anyone else in Belgium or in Antwerp, it must be, you just can't modify your car, can you? From what you've said and what you have to do, the cost to do that each year would just be crazy to change everything back. No. So were you happy with the A4 Audi in that form? Was it still an enjoyable car, even though you couldn't mod it as much as the Golf?
Yeah, you come to a certain part in your life where it's not all show anymore, and you don't need all the attention from going to meetings. It went down. The interest was less to go to meetings, still have fun with the cars, and go on. We went to Germany with the cars and everything. France. It was a group of friends with tuned cars, and that was a lot of fun. And what you said, it's difficult for people to do those things themselves. But I had lucky to have Anthony as a friend, who was the guy who worked at a body shop.
Yeah.
He went on to work in a local garage, and he had the keys, and we were allowed to work on our cars from the owner and Anthony together. We worked in a professional garage on our car, so
that's great.
That was very fortunate for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a bit of a trend here, Alan. There's a trend because the cars you own now, and the listeners will know the Porsche that you have because it's in the title of the podcast, as I always say. But there's a trend because if you, I've seen your car many times on Instagram, and I share the photos that you post on your Instagram because they're always great photographs of other people's cars. And I've seen your Porsche and your Mercedes that you still own.
Yeah.
And you're still doing those little tweaks to the cars. When we start talking about your cars, you've done tweaks to the Porsche, and you've done obviously tweaks and modifications to the Mercedes, to the W201. So is that what comes next? Is that the next memorable car that comes next before we get to the Porsche? Did the Mercedes come before the Porsche?
Yeah. I first had the Mercedes because, again, my friend Anthony, he bought one. He was looking for a nice old timer because if you go to a car here in Belgium, it used to be if it's 25 years old, it's called an old timer, and you pay ridiculous low tax. But if it's not an old timer and you go to look for a car like the Audi, the 1.8, it's not very expensive, but it's
more
fraction
expensive
of what you pay for. Yeah, an old timer, I think I pay 34 euros for taxes for a year.
Wow, that's great. That's very cheap.
Yeah, that's great.
That's very cheap. It's like I think sorry, Alan. I think in Australia that's like heritage status. They call it heritage plates. So you pay very little registration fee and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think in Australia though, it's cars over 30 years old. Has to be over 30 years old.
Now here in Belgium they changed it. Also the last 5 years, I think it's now it has to be 30 years old. But at the time it was 25. Yeah.
So. Before we get into I want to talk about the Mercedes in a second, but before we get into that, you talk about the modifications in Belgium, in Belgium being very strict and you can't modify your car. Is Belgium an easy place to say, like, you find that 964 that you remember as when you were younger, the 964, and you find one somewhere else in the world, in Japan or in UK, is it easy to import cars that are over 30 years old if you found, a 1990 964, or is Belgium quite strict on imports of cars?
No, because the Mercedes, I imported it from Holland, from the Netherlands. So it's a little bit of a hassle, but it's not like I hear the horror stories from people in Australia and everything, that it's not here. It's not that difficult. You have to go to customs, and that's a wait sometimes, and it takes a little bit of time, but it's not a disaster.
Okay.
But I never imported a car from Japan or something.
Right. Okay.
So, but it's
okay. So let's talk about the Mercedes. So were you looking? When you bought the Mercedes-Benz, and you've bought a really good model, so tell the listeners what the Mercedes was. But was that something you were searching out? Like you said, your friend had one. Was that the model in particular you wanted? You wanted the W201, or you were looking for something else?
No, I was just looking for a nice old timer I can use more often to go out and drive. A car that wouldn't disappoint in driving, and that was reliable. And my friend Anthony, he bought the same car but in a 2-liter model. And when we drove it, it was unbelievable. It was driving very soft on the highway. It had a little power, not too much, but it's an automatic for the time. I think he has an 89 and I had an 88. So after I took a drive with him, I was sold on the model, and I started looking for one for myself. And I found it in the Netherlands, a 2.3 model. Not extremely high mileage for a Mercedes, in good condition, with just here and there a little bit of trouble with the alternator driving home. But but for the rest, it's a car that it drives unbelievably well. Even my wife, it's an automatic, the Mercedes. My wife rather drove the Mercedes than the Audi.
Really?
The Audi, she didn't like to drive because it was that low and the wheels on it. But with the Mercedes, she doesn't mind. It drives very good.
But the automatic transmission on the Mercedes is actually okay?
Yeah, it's good for that age. I used to drive for the garage Golf automatics, and that's an all different story than the Mercedes. The Mercedes, it shifts really smooth for that age. It's very fun to drive. It has the springs in the seat, so you go up and down a little bit when you drive, but it makes it really soft.
I mean, it's a nice looking car. That's the one on your Instagram, right? It's like what color is it? Is it silver?
Porsche uses the same color. It's smoke silver, I think it's called.
It's a good color, and it's got the plastic sort of protection strips at the bottom, doesn't it? That classic feature of that range. I mean, it's a great Mercedes. I'll just tell the listeners, sorry, Alan, if you want to go and look at the cars when we're talking about them and see Alan's photography skills, which are really very, very good. Alan's Instagram is @Alan, ALAN. Is it Vertemon? Is that how you say your surname?
Vertommen, yeah.
Vertommen, which is VERTOMMEN, photography. So it's at Alan Vertemmen photography. I'll put the link in the bio anyway, but if you listen to this podcast now, listeners can check out the cars as we're talking about them, because we're going to get onto the Porsche shortly. Yeah, there's been a big interest in those W201s, hasn't there? There's a lot of people wanting them now, and I've noticed the prices in the UK, and I've noticed the prices in Australia have risen quite quickly. This is a car you still own, isn't it? You still have this car.
Yeah. That's a car I use more often than the Porsche. The Porsche is very low and it drives very well, but it's not a car that you say I'll go to the shop with it or something. It's in the garage, and the Mercedes I use more often than the other car. It's very spacious. We just went to a weekend away with the wife and the kids. So we needed an extra car for the materials, and we took the Mercedes. Fun to drive with.
So all the rumors about that model of Mercedes are true then? It's a really reliable car? Because I always read that people have those cars, they've got, 300,000, 250,000, 200,000 kilometers on them, and there's no issue. They're very, they're built like a tank, as people say. So that is true for that model?
Yeah, for the years and the kilometers I did with it, it only let me down once, and that was nothing seriously. I couldn't figure out what it was, and I needed to go to a specialist, and he said it was a combination with the fuel. Not the tank, but to get the fuel in front of the car.
Okay. It's like the fuel pump,
and,
is it?
The fuel pump, thank you, yeah. The fuel pump and the ignition. There was something wrong, and that was one thing that he let me down. And the sunroof. Just the day before. Things. Yeah. The day before I went with my friend Anthony to Scotland on a road trip, I was opening and closing the sunroof and it jammed on me. So that's all.
Yeah, because when I was talking to Dan on the previous owner stories, who had the 944, he was saying that he had issues with his sunroof in his 944, and he said that it actually works. See, I don't even know, some of these old Porsches and old Mercs and he said the 944's pulley system was in the trunk, in the boot.
Yeah.
And it's some pulley system that works that he was going to try and work out how to fix.
Yeah.
They get complicated, don't they? Some of the early cars, the 80s cars and some of even the 70s Porsches and stuff with sunroofs, they must be, if they don't work, I just don't know how you'd work out how to fix them, really. They're very complicated.
It's more more complicated. In the Mercedes, it's the same. The engine is in the back, and it's a pull system, like Dan said. It was just the evening before we left to Scotland. So I was fiddling with it and trying to make it work, and all what it now is, it works, but it's out of alignment.
Oh, right.
So
Right.
when I try to open it, it closes and everything. So, but it works. It's not broken, but it's out of alignment.
Right. Okay, so you've got the Mercedes W201. You're still driving that. You're still enjoying it. It's like your daily car, isn't it? It's the car that you've been using a lot. Yeah. I want to get onto the road trips towards the end of the podcast because I did see your photos on your Instagram in Scotland. So I want to ask about that because that's a long journey. So that's a very interesting story there, I'm sure. So when does the Porsche come then? You said to me, I think you owned the Porsche for about 3 years. Is that the next car that comes along, or is there something else in between? Because the Porsche that you bought is your first Porsche, right? You haven't had one before that.
Yeah. The Porsche I just bought. The beginning of 2019. And the profession, what I do, photography, is after hours. So and it started to generate a little bit of money, and I once had the opportunity to buy a Porsche, and also a good story at the time is I was looking for a 944. Because I love like you said to Dan, the wedge shape of the car, the wide in the front, the doors narrow, and the rear widen again. I love that shape, and I didn't actually like the 924 because if you don't have the spoiler in the back, it's very round, and some people like it, but I didn't like it, so I never looked at that car because I loved the 944 through how it looks. And at the time, I was looking for a model, and a friend of mine, Rico Customs, I don't know if you know him from Instagram.
I do, actually. Great cars, yeah.
Yeah, he makes unbelievable cars. I met him to Bart Kakus from a Flat Six Love Affair. And he went on through road trips with us. So he's a friend, and he had one as a replacement car for between builds of cars. He had a white 944, and I was interested in the car. And he said, "Yeah, come and buy. Let's check it out, and then you can see if you like it or not." And I went over there, and there were nothing hidden. But he said, "This is an issue. And it need to be fixed." And I fell in love with the car, with the 944. And I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." And he said, "No, you go home, you think about it, you add up all the costs, and then you decide. You're not going to tell me now," what was great advice at the time. I said, "Just go home, think about it, give it a few days, do the math on the car, see if you can afford it. Because if you can't afford all the things you want to do to it, it's going to sit in your garage, and you're not going to enjoy it." So I went home, talked to my friends how much the repairs would be, and what I can do myself, and what I have to spend out, and somebody else has to do it. And I went online at here you call it second-hand marketplace.
Okay.
And I had seen it before, this 924, and I saw it again, and it was just an unbelievable price. So I said to my friend Anthony, "You want to go and check it out?" And we checked it out, and I fell in love with that car. And I called Rico, and I said, "I'm not going to do it." And he said, "I think that's a good thing for you." And now he's very curious because he never seen a 924, but he's curious for when the car he will see it in real life.
Yeah. So the 944, the white 944, that was a stock standard car that Rico had.
Yeah,
it was a stock standard car, but it just had a few issues that had to be But you couldn't do all of them
No,
yourself. You couldn't work on all of them yourself.
yeah, it was body work.
Oh, okay.
It had a dent in the just under the door.
Okay.
And it was it was nothing serious. You can drive the car fine. It was a very good car, a very good base to start with. But the things I wanted to do to it will cost me a lot of money. And
I guess for the listeners, for any of the listeners that are not really sure what the difference is between a 924 and a 944, I have a vague idea what it is. And as you said previously, it's like the body. The 944 has more flared guards, right? It has the flared guards.
Yeah.
It has the spoiler, which gives you that kind of shape at the back, which does look a little bit better. And the 944 was that 83, the 944, Alan? Around about 83 model one, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that, 84.
83 or 84,
like
yeah.
that, yeah.
And the 944, to my knowledge, it obviously had a bigger engine. But is that the only difference? I mean, the way I see a 924, and I know you've got one and we want to get into that, but the way I see a 924, it's like the very first model of the 928. If you look at the very first model of the 928, which is 78, I think, and you look at the later models, the newer models of the 928, there's quite a big difference in the body shape. Like the 928 78 model is very clean, very simple, very rounded. I know it's a rounded shape, but then it gets, in the latter years, starts to look a bit more chunky, a little bit different to me. They do subtle changes to the body on those 928s, which look different. And that's kind of how I see the 924 to the 944. And also I see the 924 a little bit like how I'm really keen on getting a 912. It's a little bit like what the 912 is, Alan, to the 911. I don't know if you agree with that. It's kind of like almost the same, where it's a little bit underpowered, but then the experience of it is still there. And you can still really enjoy the car. Like, it's a fun car. Would you see it that way? It's a little bit that way, right?
It's similar indeed. It has the 924 started with a 2-liter engine. They came out of Volkswagen K100 or an Audi K100, and the LT, the van. It's just a 2.0 with 125 horsepower. When you went to the 944, you started at 165 horsepower and an engine that was built by Porsche.
Yeah.
So the
it's
924
very
was
similar,
actually,
very similar to a little bit similar to 912s in a way, a little bit similar engine wise.
Yeah.
So let's just go back. You contacted your friend, your buddy. You found this 924. It's obviously a lot cheaper than the 944 that Rico had.
Yeah.
So how long does it half the price really? How long does it take you to make the decision? So you said this car wasn't local. It's in Holland. How do you go about buying this car then?
Well, the 924 was in Belgium. The 944 was from Rico. It was in Holland. But the 924 was here in Belgium. It was around 50, 60 kilometers from where I lived. But when I went to look at it, I took my buddy Anthony, and we went to check out the car. But they were working in this guy's street, so we only had a few meters of driveway where I can drive the car. But it actually looked like it looks now. It was already painted. It already had those wheels on it, the interiors. There was just some minor things wrong with it. It had a leak in the radiator. Okay. It had a little bit of rust. So some minor details that were wrong with the car. But overall, when I looked at the car with those wheels and that color and the spoiler in the back from a 944, it just got me. It looks fantastic. I was hooked on the car.
Yeah, it does. It looks great. And the listeners should look at your Instagram and take a look at it. It looks great. So tell the listeners exactly what it is, Alan. Tell them exactly what the model year is, of the options that you knew came with the car when it was standard, the interior. Just give the listeners a bit of an overview of what you bought.
Well, I bought at that time, it was a 924 from 78. It had It's just a small digit speedo, so it had 34,000 kilometers, but it will be probably 134 thousand kilometers. It's painted in Nardo gray from the Audi RS6. It has it's been lowered. In the front, it's lowered with coilover suspension from a Golf 1. And in the back, the spindles, the torsion bar are lowered, and then you have an adjustment, so that's lowered as well. So it's a very low car, and it has 17-inch OZ Racing wheels in it. Pretty unique models. And the interior, I don't know what. I was looking up what the pattern, how it's called, but I couldn't find a fabric name on it.
So what do the seats have? Do the seats have the Porsche script on the seats, or are they one of the
are
they patent seats?
Yeah, it's actually gray and white stripes, just small stripes looking sometimes like an arrow, but it's not Pasha or
it's
anything
not Pasha.
special. No.
Is it the black, Alan? It's the black with the silver kind of stripe. It almost looks like not corduroy. I don't know if you know if corduroy is the word you know, but it's black with silver stripes. Is it that fabric?
Oh, it's small stripes. Maybe I can show you a picture. Just let me see here.
Okay, so I'll just keep talking, but the car you bought, so the guy you bought it from had done all these modifications. So you go and look at the car before you hand over your money. Do you give it a good check over? How do you do that? You're a mechanic, so you've worked on VWs, you've worked on other cars. What process did you go through, Alan, before you handed over your cash to buy this car?
Well, just me and my friend Anthony, we checked the car. I had looked up some troubleshooting from where you have to, because I wasn't familiar with the model. So what do you have to look out for if you're buying that car? Which are the places that had rust and everything. So I checked that out on the internet, and I went to look at the car, so I knew where the trouble spots were and what I had to look out for. And so that's actually it.
So was there much? So when you checked it out, it was in pretty good condition. There was not really that much wrong with it. Oh, okay.
No, it was actually That's the interior.
Oh, it's like herring.
Can
it's like a It's like a. I'll just tell the listeners. It's like I would call that herringbone. I would call it a herringbone fabric.
Yeah.
That's what it usually is called in clothing. Yeah, it's nice fabric. Nice fabric.
Yeah, and it was all new. It was reupholstered, so nothing on the car in the interior was bad. Just the typical on the 924 is the dashboard. They crack.
Yes,
but it's minor and it doesn't bother me. I can buy a cover to go over it, but it doesn't bother me.
It seems like a common fault in early Porsches, doesn't it? From the 70s, 60s Porsches all the way to the 80s. There's always that cracking somewhere. Yeah. It happens somewhere, yeah. So what else then? So you purchase a car, you take it back, you take it back to home. Since you've owned it, has anything major happened to the 924? Has anything majorly gone wrong that you've had to fix yourself or get a specialist to do?
No, I bought it in I think it was March in 2019. And then I gradually started working on it, changing and looking for a new radiator. Because that had a small leak in it, and just fixing minor problems with it. One of the things he had, the paint was cracked on the hood of the car. And it was nothing special. It wasn't rusty or anything, but it was just cracked. The paint was cracked. So I had in my mind, it doesn't do anything to the driving of the car, so I can do that later on. And at the end of the year, the car was getting ready for inspection. It went through with no problems. I had my friend change because he had to do it in the garage, and I don't like to do it in my garage. He changed the timing belt of the car, and just major maintenance. And then when I started driving the car, it was small distances, and normally I would go with the car on one of the road trips. But I have tested the car so little. The max I did then in it was 75, a journey of 75 kilometers. And I should normally went to the Alps with it, was something around 1,000 kilometers. So
right.
I to Germany was the first road trip. So I didn't have the confidence in the car yet. So I went with the Mercedes again.
Okay.
But when the first rain came, I was driving the car. It all came inside of the car.
Okay.
So that wasn't good.
So you had to replace all the seals. Was it the window seals or? Yeah,
it was a glued-in window, and probably when they were painting the car, to make the car dust free, they go over with a sieve. So it takes all the dust away.
Okay.
But that ate at the glue of the window.
Oh, right.
So I had to take the windows out. And if the window was out, it had been in the car for several years, and it has all stone chips.
Okay.
So I was looking for a new window, and I found a good one, a new one, in a shop in the Netherlands. But at that time it was Corona, so I ordered it, and I had to wait 3 months before I can cross the borders to get it. And then me and a friend, we put it in the car and resealed it all again. New trimmings, new clamps to hold the trims of the windows. So all small things, but with all the Corona, it took so much time.
Yeah.
But
you find sorry, Alan, you find the 924 quite easy to work on mechanically? Like you find that it's as easy as working on, say, the Golfs that you're so familiar with, or is it a little bit harder?
No, it's actually a very easy car to work with. It's been from Volks. There's a lot of Volkswagen parts in it, Beetle, Super Beetle parts, and everything. There's a lot of, and it's very easy. It's not something hard or it's just simple basic mechanics in the car. The car doesn't have a lot of options or anything. It's just an interior, no power windows. It has a standard radio, but I deleted it. I don't need a radio in the car. So it's not that difficult actually.
So what about the transmission? What about the gearbox? Is it a really nice gearbox in the 924s? Have you had to tweak that in any way or modify it, or was it already modified when you purchased it?
No, it's a standard four gears. So it's not the 5 gear yet. It's very sloppy. When you hold it, it's like in. Yeah, it's really bad, but when you get used to how I used to use driving that, it's not a problem. But when you see on TV Discovery Channel, they do overhauling of a 924 with wheeler dealers, and they adjust that,
right,
so make it more of a short shift. And that's something maybe in the future I will do. But for now, the only thing I have to do now with the car is it has a specific problem when it's heated. When it's I've driven a long time, it starts really difficult. So that's something in the fuel system that needs to be rebuilt. And the camshaft has to be, the valves has to be adjusted again.
Okay.
But that's all.
So how was, I didn't actually ask you about this. How was that feeling though? Because everyone has that first memory of driving, their first Porsche, their first 911, their 924, the 944 for the very first time. When you first actually buy it and you've got a Porsche, and some people have more vivid memories of it as a kid. You sound like you're a little bit like me, like you kind of noticed it, but it wasn't really something you're always thinking about. How was the first drive in the 924? Was it all that you imagined? Was it a special moment?
I did, because it was the cheapest model you can buy of a Porsche. My expectations weren't that high. It was just an old car, but it was a Porsche. And the first thing I noticed that it corners unbelievably. It's nothing like I ever had before. The Golf, the Audi, it was all on coilovers, but it doesn't corner like this car. It's not very fast. It's 125 horsepower, so that's nothing spectacular. But it's corners unbelievable. Still now, when I drive it on the highway, we have some very hard corners where you have to reduce the speeds. With the Porsche, I can do it in a speed that's not the Audi nor the Golf could ever do. It's just modern cars as well. They can't follow me because it goes like a bat out of hell in a corner.
That's great.
So it's very good. Yeah.
So that Porsche trait, that Porsche feature, like the design feature that's in 911s. Even though the 911 has the engine in the rear. The thing that Porsche do so well is that corner speed, isn't it? It's not necessarily always straight line speed. It's that corner speed, and I know in my 997, and I've spoken about it before, like I was so surprised when you look down how fast you're going around a twisty corner, a mountain road, and you realize how fast you're going. And I thought, I had an Audi, I had a B6 Avant. There was no way that Audi could take that corner at that same speed. You know what I mean? No way in the world. You know what I mean? Even with its lowered suspension that it had on it, you know what I mean? Like there was no way in the world. So it surprises you, and it's interesting because I didn't realize, Alan, that 924s and 944s had that same grip or that same. So it's interesting. It's interesting that it is such an important thing for Porsche, that corner speed and that handling.
No. Yeah, it is. It has to do with the transaction. It almost has a perfect 50-50 weight distribution of the car. And if it's even like mine, it's a little bit lower on small tires, thin tires, so you don't have the tire wall flexing. It really amazed me. It still amazes me when I drive and go into a corner. When I go driving with some other cars, and sometimes it's with Porsches very locally on small roads where the speed isn't high, I can keep up, no problem.
Fantastic.
With 911s air cooled.
That's great.
But it's a little bit different. I have to go all out, and they're probably driving at 50%.
You're continually changing, aren't you?
Yes.
to get that power. So what else? What else are you planning? What else is on the cards for the 924? What else are you planning to do with it? Any other modifications that will keep you out of trouble, or it's just general maintenance and repairs now?
Yeah, now for the moment, first I will do the engine, the rebuilding of the fuel system, and then the car got a little bit of rust, so it's nothing really serious. But before it comes really serious, I have to take care of that first. But those are the things now planning. That's the first thing I'm gonna do. Yeah.
Fantastic. So are you going to keep this car for a while? This is a you're not looking for a 964, or you're not looking for a 944 or a 968. This is the one that you're going to keep for a bit.
Yeah, I never say never, but you're always looking. Like all the guys you ask, they're always looking for the next thing. So
always looking,
always checking. Last night I was checking 944s and thinking, that's a nice one.
No, you know what the problem is, Alan? And I find this for me when I'm editing the owner stories. Every time I speak to someone with a different car, like even to you today, like all I want to do now is go and check the prices of 924s. When I spoke to Dan, it's like I'm looking at 944s. I sent Daniel a link, Dan from the previous owner stories. I sent him a link yesterday of a 944 I found in New Zealand for only like around 10,000 Australian dollars. So I'm not sure what that is in euro. That's about Euros, 6,000, 7,000 euro, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which was quite cheap. You know what I mean? I mean, it had rust and it had stuff, but there's still, everyone's trying to find that first Porsche or that first 911. And, you cannot overlook 924s, 944s, you know what I mean? Because you can still find them at an okay price if you're willing to do a little bit of work and et cetera.
Yeah.
Correct?
It is. And it is. And it will be something nice for you, for example. This isn't much money. You're talking about a 912. You're talking about a lot of Australian dollars.
Yeah.
But if you check this out and you do a little bit of work on it, you have a similar experience, I think, for a lot less money and a nice addition to the fleets. And like you said before in the previous owner story, the prices keep going up. So it's not a bad investment if you take it on for a while.
Yeah, and even finding one in the UK, even here, you know what I mean? Because I'm in the UK at the moment. I've looked at the prices of them a while back, and they're not that expensive. And even with the import cost into Australia, because the price is so low, you don't get hit with the higher tax that Australia puts on, which is a luxury car tax, because they're under that limit. And really the shipping is going to be 5,000 Australian, so whatever that is in euro. I don't know what it is in euro, but 5,000 Australian, 4,000 US, something like that to ship it. It's not that much when you added that onto the car. And like you said, if you put a little bit of money into it, and I think your story and Dan's story with his 944, he bought his very cheap. He said it in the podcast. He's put a bit of money into it, but he bought a car that the engine was quite sound. You know what I mean? Like the compression and the engine was quite sound. And I think, don't you think that's a good tip though for transaxles in general? It's like as long as the engine's quite good, I mean, you're always going to have bits of rust, aren't you? It's going to be unavoidable to get a car without any rust in it.
It's depending what the car has suffered. You have owners who bought a 944 and took care of it like a baby. So you're not going to find it's not a rust. Not every car has rust, but it's possible if the car has 200,000 or 300,000 kilometers on it. Yeah, you'll probably have driven a lot and stone chips and rust and everything. But if you find a car that's well maintained and taken care of, rust I don't think it's going to be an issue. Okay. I found similar, like you said, just a car yesterday here, 944 exterior, new paint, new interior, but it has a problem with the engine. It goes, but the ignition goes off again. Okay. So it probably in the injection system or the fuel pump or something that has a problem, and it's also 6,000 euros.
Wow, that's cheap. Is that a common problem? The fuel pump in these transaxle Porsches in that model year?
No, I don't think so. It's just a coincidence. I think that I had it with mine. I think because my car is now 42 years old, he'll probably, if you look it up on the internet, some of cars will have it, but it's normal wear and tear, I think, for a car that's 42 years old.
42 years old, yeah, true. Yeah. So, Alain, let's tell the listeners about what you do. You said you do it in the spare time. I wasn't sure whether you did it full-time or in your part-time.
No.
I'll just lead it in for you so you can just tell the listeners a bit about what your photography business is all about. But you said to me, this is your first Porsche, but obviously you've taken images of lots of Porsches. And I'm a fan of your Instagram. I have been for a long time, and we've chatted backwards and forth over quite a bit of time. How did you get into the photography, and what are some of the most memorable cars you've taken images of? What are the most memorable Porsches you've taken images of?
Well, it all started with the same friend Anthony and I were in an indoor classic car show, and we were looking at a photographer showing off his pictures and selling them on. And he said, "Oh, I really like this," and it was a front of a Porsche. And I think, oh wow, that's a nice picture. And he really loved it. And he's the godfather of my youngest son.
Okay.
And I thought maybe it will be a nice Christmas gift for him. So I'm starting. I come home. I tell my wife, and I said I'm gonna look for somebody who owns a Porsche and try to photograph it, take nice pictures like that, so I can give him something that he really wants. And I used to take pictures of my car, the tuned friends' cars and everything, but nothing like professionally or something like that. She's just in the spare time and just out for fun. And then later on, I grew in the photography, and I went into weddings and everything and started making a little bit of money on it, so I can buy better materials. Then I come back to the story. So I was looking for a Porsche to photograph, and here in my neighborhood, there was a guy with a Porsche, and it was a nice car, and he had 2 or 3 at the time. But I didn't know him. I said hi to him, but that was it. And a colleague of mine knew him, and he said, "Oh, it's a good feller. Next time I see him, I'll ask him and if he can take his pictures of his car." So there was I think if I have to look it up, I think December 2016, and the guy was called Bart. And didn't know much more of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Keep going.
My friend has the connection with him, and he says you can add him on Facebook. Ask him the question. He will do it, and he will meet with you. So I go onto his Facebook, message him, and he says, "Yeah, we pick a date, and then we can shoot a car." And he asked me, "When will you do it?" And I said, "At night. I love to take pictures of cars at night and light painting the car. So the car, I light it up with a flashlight." And he says, "Okay, that's something special. Okay, no problem. I'll meet you then and there." And then I start Googling his name, and I see that he's an analog professional photographer who makes books of Porsches.
Yes.
So my nerves went
I was going to
through the
say,
roof.
that must have made you very nervous then, once you saw that.
Yeah.
How many books were out then? How many books of Bart's Flat 6 Love Affair books were out? Was that 1 or 2 at that time?
I think two
Okay.
at the time, I think. Yeah. So I get very nervous meeting this guy. But it started out, we had a very nice conversation. He liked the photos that I took, and it was awesome guy. I said, "Yeah, I only have an hour time. No problem. I'll take the pictures." I shot the photos. He liked them. He put it on his Instagram, and I made a plexiglass photo for my friends, and he also really liked it. And then I was in contact with Bart, and he started. I asked him one more time, "Can I use one of your cars for communion photography from a young kid who was really into cars, and a Porsche would be awesome?" He said, "Yeah, no problem." He said, "It's okay, in front of my door." I said, "Okay." We took the pictures, and I asked, "So Bart, you've done a lot of things for me. If there's ever something I can do for you, just let me know." And he said, "Yeah, well, actually, I'm going on to a road trip, and I would love a photographer. I don't take a lot of my gear with me," he said. "I'm just there for the driving and the camaraderie with the guys, good times with the guys. And I would like you to join me for the photography.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that was a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't think about that twice.
This is where it all started.
That's where it all started. Yeah.
So where are those photos from his road trip? Are they just personal photos he kept for himself, or were they published anywhere?
No, we on Instagram, of course. In the beginning, this was let me see. I think 2017. We went on a road trip to Cap Guirinet in France. It was very beautiful. What we do, it's called Fraternity, and Bart organizes it.
Great name. Great name.
Yeah. It's they book a small hotel where everybody can stay. It's fully booked. It's not a big hotel. It's just a small hotel. We eat breakfast there and dinner as well there. And in the afternoon, in the rest of the day, you do what you want to do. Nothing's obligated, or you just hang out with the fellas, and some go driving left, some go driving right, some
Fantastic.
Just go sightseeing. It's just a bunch of guys.
So this is every year? This is a yearly thing?
Yeah, we try to do that every year, but now COVID has ruined two fraternities. Because normally it wasn't. Yeah, normally 2020 was in the Alps, will be in the Alps, but it got canceled twice. So now we're thinking about going smaller, somewhere more local.
Yeah, I'm sure all the listeners who are listening, because we're talking about Bart and we're talking about Flat Six Love Affair, but I'm sure most of the listeners, being all Porsche people as we are, would know what Flat Six Love Affair is, the book. So you and Bart are still kept friends. You're good friends, and you still share the passion together because you live quite close to each other. So
yeah, it's 1 kilometer, I think. 1 kilometer from my door. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes with the Flat Six Love Affair in the beginning, I went with him. That's how I met Rick from Rico Customs. I shot the behind the scenes of the cars. That's so great. Bart went there, and I shot the behind the scenes so he can post them already on Instagram and everything.
Fantastic. So everyone can check that out. I'm not sure. Is it under Flat Six Love Affair, Bart's Instagram? I can't remember what the tag is.
No, it's just Bart Kakis. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure most people know.
He posts everything there, but he's now moving. He does still do the book because he has to make one.
He's got one more, right?
Yeah, one more. Yeah, but he's now also very talented in shooting profiles and portraits of a lot of people, including Jay Leno and everything.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I watched something on YouTube, and it was very early on, and he was talking about Flat Six Love Affair, and he said, I'm really glad I did this, and I did one, but then I realized because I'm spelling out the word Porsche that I have to keep doing them. And I think he was like doubting himself. He said, I'm not sure how I'm going to get to the last book, because you think about it, it's quite a feat, isn't it? Like to go through that many versions of the book. But now he's got, obviously, I'm guessing he's got so many people that want to be in it, so many people that want to be in that book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how he does it, and how if you look at the first book, it's very, very nice. But now he's in the stage shooting and everything. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they're great photographs.
He has also an unbelievable contacts. Contact persons.
So here's a question for you, and I'm sure you're going to hate this question, but there's a lot of bad photos on Instagram. There's a lot of bad photos of cars and Porsches on Instagram. Bad angles, bad composition, bad crops. What's the number one tip for people who want to take a really good shot of their Porsche, Alain, whether they're using a point and shoot or an iPhone camera? What is the one thing that you would say is the most important? Or one or two things you think is the most important to get a great shot of your Porsche?
I always, what I find especially makes the picture is the background. Just make a good background, something special, or take enough space between the car and the background. So the car stands out from your photo. If you're in a busy street and it's really busy, the car blends into the picture. But if you're on a parking lot and you take some space between you and the background, the car really jumps out of the picture. So that's something I would do. Angles, every car has something special. If you go to a Boxster, the rear is special. If you go to a wide body, the side arches are special. Yeah, it's all different. Every car, every Porsche has something different.
So what is that point on your car, on the 924? What is the thing that you think is always the focal point that you always want to capture, that you think is that special part of the 924?
Well, actually, I don't like to shoot my own cars that much. For the time I have the car, I haven't taken a lot of pictures of it. Right. But the thing I like about the most is the back wheels, the color, and the spoiler of the side shot on the back of the car. That's something I very, very much like on that car.
It's a nice angle. All right, we're almost at the end, and at the end we always like to talk about favorite driving roads. And I know you've driven. You've got on your Instagram. You went to Scotland in your Mercedes.
Yeah.
If someone's coming, apart from where you've been overseas, if someone's coming to Belgium, if they're coming to Antwerp, are there great driving roads where you would say take your 911 or take your Porsche or take your 924 and drive it and enjoy it? What are the best roads around your area, or do you prefer to go further afield into France or into Scotland, like you said?
Here in Antwerp, there's not much roads. The thing I like to do if I go shooting in Antwerp or just driving is the harbor. Is very nice. Because there's in the weekend and on Sunday there's not much traffic there, and you have nice roads and some corners. But if you're really driving roads, you have to go to the Ardennes here in Belgium. It's all twisty roads, uphill, downhill, very very much very fun roads to drive on with nice scenery.
Okay.
The most beautiful that I've been are first Scotland. It's unbelievable, and the Black Forest in Germany.
Yeah, I think someone else said the Black Forest on a previous owner stories. That's supposed to be a fantastic drive, isn't it?
Yeah, that's unbelievable. We did that with most of the times when I go on these fraternities. I love shooting over there. So I'm not driving. I'm in the passenger seat. I hop from one car to another car. So you have a lot of different angles, because if you're always in one car, you're shooting the car in front of you and that's it. So if you hop from car to car, you have an all different view of photos. But you feel also a lot of difference in the car if you're going from an air-cooled 911 to a 964 to a 966, 97, 997. It's all so much different to be in the passenger seat.
Yeah, true. So when you went to Scotland, though, you took the W201, right? You took the Mercedes. You didn't take the... Are you planning on taking the 924 to the roads in Scotland? You think that would work well in Scotland or not?
We were thinking about it, but it was a road trip organized by Eurotrip. It's an organization who does organize some drives like that. So it was with a lot of people. But the only thing they say is you go from this place to that place, and how you do it, they don't care. They give options, but they set up camp in a different camping area. If you want to, you can have breakfast or dinner, and on the rest of the day, you're free to do whatever you want.
Okay.
And it was very beautiful over there. We enjoyed so much beautiful roads. it's like you're always driving next to water. It's always somewhere.
I'd love to do those. I'd love to do those roads in Scotland. I'd love to do those roads. In Germany as well, that Black Forest always comes up. And I saw an article about it. I think maybe it was in Porsche's website. I think it was on Porsche's newsroom website. They had something there, some story about a drive there. And the roads just look absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Alain, thank you so much. I think we're almost at the end. We've gone a little bit over, and I knew we would today. And I know you said to me you didn't think you had a lot to talk about, and I knew we did. I knew we did. We're at about an hour and 15, so we've gone a little bit longer than normal. I really appreciate being on the podcast. Is there anything you want to say to the listeners before we go? Anything else you want to share about the 924 experience or anything else?
Yeah, for the transaxles, don't overlook them. If you're looking for the moment still cheap car, it's a fun way of starting the Porsche journey. For you and Steve, I would like to say thank you.
I'm going to search for them now.
Yeah. To you and Steve, I would say thank you. Actually, we met through Instagram, and you're the first podcast I ever listened to. And thanks to you, and also the Smoking Tire and Spike's Car Radio. I've listened to every episode from when I started, and it's been a journey. I never would have thought two people talking about Porsches would be so interesting. So thank you very much, and for having me as well. I
appreciate it. We appreciate it. Thank you, Alain. And I'm glad you came on. Like I said, you and I have been chatting on and off through Instagram. And like I said, I really love your photos, and I like your Instagram. And I want all the listeners to go and follow. Make sure you go and follow Alain. And it's like I said, it's at Alain, Alain, Vertemon, VERTOMMEN photography. But the link's in the description of the podcast. Go over there and say hello to Alain and tell him how much you enjoyed his story. It's been great meeting you, Alain. It's been great chatting. We'll keep in contact for sure.
Same here.
And keep up those photographs that you post. Like I said, I really enjoy them, and I like the combination of your cars. I like how you've got that Merc, that 201. It's another car that I've always liked. I've always liked one. I knew someone that owned one a long time ago. A boss of mine had one, and I've been in it a few times. I've never driven one. I drove a 90s E Cabriolet a couple of times. Who the same person owned one of those, and they're just great cars to drive. They're not super fast, but they're just great cars to drive.
Yeah, those are real nice cruisers. But because of the body of the 190, it's smaller. It's a little bit more fun to drive, because I drove the same car in a sedan in the E200, 230 with the same engine. It didn't drive the same as the 190,
okay.
The W201.
So, but you've been listening to Spike's Car Radio. I'm just going to bring it up. So Zuckerman's just bought that Evo.
I wanted to say the same thing.
Oh my god! And I was listening to yesterday's episode, and they were saying how many. Did you hear that one, the latest one, where they were saying how he had it parked in the car park at Malibu Kitchen or whatever it was, and there were so many kids, like younger kids, like thinking how great the car was. Like, it's such an iconic, such a rare car, though, isn't it?
Yes, I think first of all, in the States you don't see them as much, and to see a real Evo 2, it's unbelievable. But they're so expensive.
I was going to say, they must be crazy money. Evo 2 DTM, right? They must be crazy money.
Yeah. I think I saw one here at a show with some kilometers, because his car was not that much kilometers, but with high kilometers, it was, I think, 180,000 euros.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It must have been like in the 200,000 euros at least, right? At least.
Yeah.
All right, Alain, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Me
too. Great to have you on, and thanks for coming on during the middle of the day, breaking your day up.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's fun. I'm on holiday, so it's not a big deal.
Oh, good. Fantastic. All right, everyone. Thank you, Alain. All right, everyone, that was Alain coming in from Antwerp in Belgium. The first owner from Belgium, actually, the very first owner from Belgium we've had on Owner Stories. So there you go, Alain. You're number one. Alain's got his 94 Outlaw and his Mercedes W201. Like I said, go and follow him on Instagram and say hello. I'll put it in the link. And that's about it for today. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. This is Owner Stories number 45. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.